If they ready, they mind. Then they looking for trouble. Ran right up in the knowledge. Now they packing the home. Now they know we can fight. Can't take giving every week. Me and yo, she mine. We won't bring you the heat. Now they know that we hit. Then they know we quit. Yo, she about to jail it. Drink up, bring it and give it. Unity, unity, unity. Cause they know we ain't stopping. Then they know they got problems. Then they ran out of options. But we know we got a problem. Can't let it go unsolved. Break learning and percentage history. We see them all. Karma is karma. I say what I say. I hear the wall. Till I see y'all fall off, then I bring y'all up on load. I'm back up on my Clyde winners. 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 Divine winners. Clyde winners. Blind vendor. Clyde winners. I'm with you. Ride with you. Master teacher. Create master. Clyde winners. Give respect to the elders. Clyde winners. Somebody have to look at me. Yeah. Somebody have to look at me. I think that somebody have to look at me. I think that somebody have to look at me.
I'll be and be one. I'll be and be one. I'll be.
I'm not making stories, I'm not glad. I'm not cursed, I'm not defiled. I'm not confounded too. I'm not cursed again.
Dr. Winters has illustrated that Africans have been settling the New World and building new civilizations and cultures in the Americas and around the world for the past 100,000 years. Dr. Winters has published and written numerous anthropological, linguistics, education, and population genetics articles. Many of these articles have appeared in peer-reviewed journals and online. His work has appeared in the Journal of Black Studies, Afrikhistorique, Journal of African Civilization, Adolescence, International Review of Education, Thresholds in Education, TC Record, Bioessays, International Journal of Human Genetics, and PLOS Genetics, to name a few. He has published over 40 books, including Atlantis and Mexico, the Mandi and the Ancient Americas, We Are Not Just Africans, and African Empires in Ancient America. For more of Dr. Clyde Winters, check out Yoshima Gumroad page, and that will lead you to the master himself, Dr. Clyde Winters.
What up, though? What up, though? What up, though? Hey, Zachary, Lindy, Gilman, how you doing? JP, Seven Scales, Jalen Prasad, thank you. What's up, everybody? This is an exciting day. Hey, Karen, how you doing, Karen? Last night, I forgot to mention that you have family from the St. Kitts, so I guess you know what's going on there in terms of the healthy food and stuff like that. I forgot to mention it last night. Again, how's everybody doing? I'm glad to see you here. Today, we have a very exciting topic. And this topic today is going to be on, on blacks in China. I found an article last week that really just shocked the hell out of me. It shocked the hell out of me because it was written by a Chinese guy, and he found some research that I think is very important. He found some research that is really above and beyond. How you doing, Jesse? Above and beyond in terms of how we should check out the relationship between the founders of Chinese civilization. Yes, the founders of Chinese civilization. This new information was so exciting to me, so shocking. It's shocking because I've been studying blacks in China for years, and I even back in the 80s and 90s, I was the so-called world expert on Muslims in China. So I used to attend a lot of conferences and I used to present a lot of papers. So I was really surprised because in China, they don't really want you to see the artifacts. They have a lot of artifacts in China, but they don't want you to see the artifacts. In addition, they have many mounds, and they won't even, how you doing, CGI Kid Productions? They won't even allow you, in a sense, to excavate these mounds. They've got tons of mounds throughout China. And I think the reason that they don't want to do this is that they're afraid that if people excavate these mounds, that they'll be able, in a sense, to see what's inside of those mounds. And I think that inside of those mounds are many, black African skeletons, black African, artifacts. I've already found a lot of statues and other things that demonstrate the African character of ancient Chinese civilization. But again, we have a lot of evidence, but this article and what I'm going to talk about today is something that you're going to find most interesting, you see. Hopefully, we'll get through this. And then at the conclusion of it, hopefully we'll have some questions. If you guys have any questions about what we're going to talk about or anything, you can bring them up then. But, I want to make sure in a sense that you feel comfortable. I really enjoyed the fact that you guys in the chat, you helped me to make this a very good presentation because you guys helped me to think. The chat is almost as powerful as my, group that supports me in terms of, Patreon, because my Patreon followers, they support just about all my research, even this research. The ability to be able to make these slides, to be able, in a sense, to make more positive slides, come from the fact that I'm able to buy subscriptions to many different programs that can help you to produce good stuff. How you doing, Sister Shanice? What's going on? Oh, Dorvale, B1, baby, B1. Dorvale is the man. Like I tell you, this man does not allow me to sleep at night, but I don't care. I don't care, Dorvale. You're always sending me such good information. I'm sharing your information with other people. I see you're even in contact with Dr. Short. That's wonderful because we need to get this information out there. We need to get people to understand what's going on. Joan Coramante, what up, though? This is my lady right here. Yes. She's the one who hit me on the head. Bam! You mean lady. She made me realize that when I talked about caves, I had to move away from just talking about culturally acquired immune deficiency syndrome. She woke me up. She made a light go off in my head. She made that light bulb come up over my head. I saw it shining. And she said that, no, when you catch caves, you not only lose your ability, your immunity to racism, your immunity to whiteness, but you also give up your identity often. And I thank Joanne a lot for that because she's helping me a lot, And the thing is this, is that all of you guys are so instrumental in terms of making me really feel like coming every Thursday and helping me to really feel excited about sharing all the new information that I come up with. Because see, a lot of times, in a sense, it's so many things that are happening every day. The research is so dynamic in terms of what African people are doing. A lot of it is hard to keep up with. So that's why I appreciate the fact that you guys send me information, you send me emails, you're on my Patreon, you're sending me, a lot of documents that can help me to be able to really flesh out a lot of this good history, flesh out a lot of this information, and be able to share with the family. So thank you guys for coming. Let's go into let's get into this program now. We're going to kind of try to discuss, the African origin of the Black rulers of China. The first rulers of China were Blacks. This is a reconstruction. It's kind of an image, and I made this image based upon, in a sense, the fact that I'm able to go to these various programs and be able to use AI to create images. They can really make you feel that you're a part of it. And this image is representing how maybe one of those early Black emperors of China would have looked. You see the top knot, you see the dragon or the snake. And this is something that is very important in terms of understanding this whole idea of the snake or the dragon in the religions of Black and African people. One day I might have to do a paper on that. You can go to my Patreon to see the slides. After I do the presentation, I'm going to put the slides in my Patreon. And I hope that you'll join my Patreon because, as I told you before, it's my Patreon that allow me to be able to access a lot of the latest information. Much of the latest information is in books that are recently published, or they're behind paywalls. A lot of the newspapers, a lot of the research magazines, a lot of the research journals. These journals are behind paywalls, and that means you may have to pay as much as maybe $39 for just to read an article for 2 hours, or sometimes $100 or $200 just to be able to draw an article down for many of these journals. So I appreciate very much the support of my Patreon, and I hope that some of you out there will, join my Patreon, help support my research, help support these Thursday excursions into Black, African, Afrocentric history. You can find me on Twitter at Dr. Clyde Winters 8. You can follow me on TikTok at Dr. Clyde Winters 3. And if you go to TikTok, you can see some of the hundreds of thousands of shorts that have been posted on TikTok. And these shorts have little inspiring information about Black history, about Aboriginal history. So check out the TikTok shorts. I also have shorts on my YouTube channel, and that's the channel you're on now. Right now, if you would, take that finger, take that thumb, hit that key, subscribe to my platform, subscribe to this channel, and also press that like button. Here you're on our Clyde Winters YouTube. Here I have over almost 300 art, movies, videos, and things like that relate to Black history. Every aspect of Black history on every continent on the planet Earth, you will find videos on this platform, on this channel. Check it out. Check out those videos. Check them out at your leisure. And you can order my books at Amazon.com. Yoshimod, since it's Black History Month, Yoshimod has an opportunity for you guys to get some important information on Black history. These are little booklets that you can use to teach your children, or you can learn about Black history. They only cost $3. Let me run this video past you.
Hey B1 family, I'm excited to tell you about something super special and educational. This Black History Month, Yoshimod has created an amazing collection of PDFs all about incredible Black inventors and their amazing achievements. Do you know about Mae Jemison, the first FBA woman astronaut? Or Percy Julian, who made groundbreaking discoveries in chemistry? These are just a couple of the amazing people you'll learn about in these PDFs. These PDFs are perfect for teachers, homeschooling parents, or anyone who loves learning. They're filled with fun facts and inspiring stories that make learning about Black history exciting. Only $3 for a journey through history with some of the most influential Black inventors and scientists. Just click the link in the description to grab your copies from Yoshi Mod's Gumroad store. And don't forget to check out Yoshi Mod's other amazing creations and music on Spotify. Let's learn, have fun, and celebrate Black history together.
Okay, so you can go to gumroad/yoshimod.com. Go there and, find out this, get some of these interesting information. A lot of the information I'm going to discuss this evening, you can find some of it in these books, The Ancient Blacks of China. In that book, I talk about the various Black civilizations. I don't talk about the stuff that I'm doing tonight because this is all new. But if you get this book, it can give you further information on the history of Black people in China. Get my book, The History of the Sioux Empire, the Mandi Civilization of Africa and Asia. This is a very important book because I just discovered that there was an additional empire. Yes. We didn't just have the Egyptian empire. There was rulers of Egypt who had another empire that they had founded in Asia and in the Americas. Yes. And they called this empire the Sioux Empire. Get this book to find out more about the Sioux Empire. A lot of this stuff we're going to talk about today relates to linguistics. It relates to the words. It relates to, in a sense, how you can use linguistics to be able to discover various aspects of ancient Black history. In fact, back in the day, that's how I really began some of my research in terms of finding a relationship between the Sumerians and Lamanites and Mandi. Was I used what's called comparative linguistics. And you can get this book, African Historical Linguistics, Anti-Ethiopian Comparative and Historical Linguistic Methods. In this book, you can learn how to use comparative and historical linguistics to be able to examine all aspects of the past. It's kind of sad, but, even up to this day, I was going to a university back in the 70s and early 70s at that. And they didn't have a comparative linguistics course. And sadly, if you go to universities today, they still don't have comparative linguistic courses. When I was teaching at Governor State University in the bilingual program, I taught an applied linguistic course, but I couldn't really teach in a comparative linguistic course. But a lot of people are interested in comparative linguistics because comparative linguistics is very important. Sister Shanice, who's on the in the chat, Sister Shanice, she wrote a fantastic article on the relationship between, in a sense, Patois or Jamaican and Old Irish, and so then it's very important that we look at these links because you not only have to look at historical links, you not only have to look at archives. Sometimes looking at the language relationships can also help illuminate our history. So you may want to get this book, African Historical Linguistics. Okay, what is FBA? FBA is not a group. FBA is not an organization. FBA is a lineage. A lineage is lineal descent from an ancestor, ancestry, or pedigree. As a result, we are descendants of the African and Aboriginal Blacks who built the United States. Yes, FBA all the way. B1 is acknowledging your Black African ancestry and mod, not heritage. We must be race men and women proud of our culture and African Black ancestry. You got to be B1. The European has taken over the whole world. He took over Africa. He took over America. And the way he was able to take over Africa, the way he was able to take over America, is that he allowed us to fight among ourselves. Whereas the Dutch, the French, the Germans, they all unified to take over Africa. They all unified, in the sense, to take over the Americas. They all unified to take over North America. But while they were being unified, we were fighting each other. While they were being unified, we were killing each other. While they were being unified, we were enslaving each other. Yes, putting each other in slavery, not only in Africa, but even in Aboriginal America. That's because we didn't understand that we must be B1. B1, black first. Put B1 in the chat, baby. We have been taught a history of lies, a history where we are the victims of white racism. These lies teach us that we are a people too weak to defend ourselves because the natural superiority of the European race over the primitive African, whose emotionalism makes it impossible for them to do anything without the guidance and direction of the European, yes. That's what the European teaches. He teaches that we are so emotional that we're unable, in a sense, to think strategically, that we're unable, in a sense, to really figure out things and be able to move forward, and above and beyond. But this is a lie. It's a lie because this is one of history's greatest lies. And we're going to discuss another lie. And that lie today is Black people in China. As a rule, under white supremacy, history is whatever white people say it is. Even though archaeologists have found ancient artifacts of Blacks, the white supremacists demand that you ignore what you can see with your own eyes and replace it with images they make up. Yes, 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 yes. They'll tell you that the Olmecs are baby faces. They'll tell you that the Olmecs, in a sense, are Mongoloid, people. But they're not. They're African people, and they are an African people who practice an African culture and who taught that African culture to other Black people who were living in the Americas. Yes. The first rulers of China were Black. Chinese do not want to become dark-skinned. You can go to Google right now, and you're going to see when these Chinese people go to the beach, they're trying to cover up their faces. They're trying to, in a sense, make sure that they can always show that whiteness. That's why when they come over here, instead of them being able, in a sense, to hook up with Black people, no, they don't want to hook up with you. They don't want to hook up with me. They don't want to hook up with us because they don't want to be dark. They're afraid to be dark. They want to be light. They want to be white because, just like everybody else in the world, they've been brainwashed. They've been brainwashed to feel that white is right and black is somewhat inferior. But not only that, but back in the day, after the Zhao, when the Zhao kingdom began, they used to, in a sense, have holidays in old China. And in ancient China, every time they would have a holiday, they would gather up these people called the king. These were Black people, the king people, and they would barbecue on every holiday. It was almost the same as back over here, back in the day, during the turn of the century and in the 30s, 20s, 30s, maybe the 40s, they would lynch Black people. So they have this ritualized aspect that Black people can be lucky if you can kill one, but they in no way want to be Black. And yet, in a sense, although they don't want to be Black, although they run away from Blackness, we know that the ancient Chinese were Black people because they identified themselves as Black people. Archaeological research makes it clear that Negroids were very common to ancient China. Everett noted that one of the earliest skulls from North China found in the upper cave of the Zhao Gongdian was of Oceanic Negroid melanosoid. These Blacks were the dominant group in South China. Quan Chi Chang, writing in the 4th edition of Archaeology of Ancient China, 1986, wrote that, and I quote, "By the beginning of the recent Holocene period, the population in North China and that in the Southwest and in Indochina had become sufficiently differentiated to be designated as Mongoloid and Oceanic Negroid races, respectively. By the Upper Pleistocene, the Negro type was typified by the Yuetiang skulls from Yunnan." One of the things that was almost always a giveaway that Chinese culture was in African cultures. That look at the houses they built, they were shaped like what? Pyramids. This whole idea of the pyramid, the pyramidal shape, and the pyramidal house goes back to where? It goes back to ancient Africa. And Black people took this idea with them wherever they settled. In the Chinese literature, the Blacks were called Li Min, Kunlun, Jiang, Tian, Yi, and Yuak. The founders of the Shia dynasty and the Shang dynasties were Blacks. These blacks were called Yuek and Qiang. The modern Chinese are descendants of the Zhao. The second Shang dynasty, situated on Yang, was founded by the Yin, and as a result, this dynasty is called Shang Yin. The Yin, or Oceanic Mongoloids type, is associated with the Austronesian speakers. Quan Chi Chang, in prehistoric and early historic culture horizons and the traditions in South China, talks about all of these black skeletons they found. They talk about all these black skeletons and other black folk. Yes, yes, yes. What you don't understand is that when you study the history, when you study the archaeology of China, at least the archaeology of China, up until maybe the 1980s, they didn't mind telling you that the original people in China were black. Yes, the original people of China are black. Look at those hats in the sense that these black Chinese were wearing. These are the same hats that you'll find people wearing in the Gambia today. And you'll find people in the Gambia with surnames like Yang, Ying, Long. One of the professors at Howard University, who I used to associate with back in the 80s and 90s, was Dr. Niang, Suleiman Niang, and he came from the Gambia. So you can see this relationship. But see, you understand this relationship much better when you start to look at the fact that our ancestors are always talking to us. We are our ancestors, and that because our ancestors are always talking to us, they're out there. They're moving in the spirit world. They're moving in the ether, and they're trying to find people who really want to know their history. They're trying to find people who really love their people. Here you can see some of the various definitions, and as you can see, Liang. Li means, in a sense, a dark color. It means a black, and so as you can see, that Li means black. Also, we see Min. Min is the Chinese word for the people. And so we find that Li Min, which was the name of the ancient Chinese, means the black people. Dayong, people, public masses. Ming is another name for people. Ming is people. Ming, people sprout. Ring is man. Now, ring mean is very interesting because ring mean and rin means people. But think about this, that rain, it corresponds to ancient Egyptian remet, you see? And remet is a noun, that means human being or person. In Old Egyptian, it was pronounced Ramak. In Middle Egyptian, it was pronounced Rama. And in late Egyptian, it was called Rome. But we see that Rin, or man in Chinese, is very similar to remet in ancient Egyptian. There's another word for black, he, dark or black. Heilong's Yang province, Hek, say, black. Li is a surname. Black is abbreviation for Lebanon. Lu, black. Wu is a crow or black. Shuang is black or mysterious. Yi also means black. Other words include Yu, which means black, dark green. Zhao, black. Police or now runners from the black clothes formerly worn by them. Zhao means black. Zi means black. It's also the name of a river. So as you can see, there's many of these names, but it's so startling, isn't it? Isn't it kind of startling to imagine that these ancient Chinese would call themselves Li Min? Books to study blacks and the Lamites in China include The Ancient Blacks of China, written by me. Also, you can go to my book, The Ancient Black Civilizations of Asia. This is an article that just came out. This article is what made me decide to do this presentation today. And this article is the evidence to prove that the King Scorpion of ancient Egypt was the Chinese recorded Yellow Emperor. And this was written by Guang Bao Lu. See, in Chinese, the last name comes first. So Guang would be the family name or the surname, and his name would be Bao Liu. But again, this article is so exciting, and I'm going to show how exciting this article is as we discuss this whole idea of the rulers of China being black. But get my books, The Ancient Blacks of China and The Ancient Black Civilization of Asia. Buy these books if you want to find out more about these black people. You can find this article online right now, but try to get the article quick because this article was a pre-publication or preprint. What that means is that it's going to be published in the future in a journal, and that journal, when it's published in a journal, it might cost about $300, $400, maybe $200, $300 just to read it. Depending on what journal it's in. So if you're really interested in finding out more about what we're going to discuss, get that article, The Evidence to Prove That the King Scorpion of Ancient Egypt was a Chinese recorded yellow emperor by Guang Mao Liu. The term Li Min means black people. The term for peasant has nothing to do with Li Min. The term for peasant comes from the Zhongzhongji character, which is formed by a group of three men, usually placed under a sun, signifying that they are working on the farm in the sun. A lot of Chinocentric people, they'll try to say that the people didn't really call themselves Li Min. They'll try to say that they were that they really, in a sense, called themselves, Xiangjin. But see, Xiangjin, that only shows some people working under the sun. That doesn't necessarily make them the black people. But that's why the ancient people refer to themselves, with the ancient designation of Li Min. And we find, in a sense, that when you look at the ancient civilizations of Shia, which was the first civilization in China, and when you look at the Shang civilization, you'll find that the people who lived in these countries, in a sense, they called themselves Li Min. They didn't say that they were brown by the sun. So again, European, Chinese, like Europeans, they don't have a history. For much of their ancient history, they don't have a history. So then therefore what they do is that they try to make up a history. Because remember, the Chinese, they credit the Shia and Shang dynasties with just about everything that make up Chinese civilization today. So that means, in a sense, that when they're talking about Chinese civilization, they're talking about a culture that was developed by black people like you, black people like me, black people like us. Finally, the Chinese classics make it clear that the Min Li or Li Min, black people, has no reference, in a sense, to the peasant Chinese. James Legge, in his book on the Chinese classics, and in the Chinese classics, what he does is that he translates many of the ancient books. And what does he say about these Li Min people? He says, in a sense, and I quote, when you read the Shu King, we find that and I quote, in the canon of Yao, we discover that Yue regulated and polished the people of his domain, who all became brightly intelligent. Finally, he united and harmonized the myriad states of the empire. And lo, these black people were transformed. You see, a lot of times they try to translate Li Min as black hair, but as I already showed you, Li Min means black people. But again, that's another way that Europeans and Chinese try to, in a sense, make you believe that, black people didn't accomplish anything. When you read about these black people in ancient China, that's all make-believe. It's not make-believe, but they tell you this so they can send you going down a track into a rabbit hole. They want you to go down a track, in a sense, that leads you into nowhere and nothingness. And when everything is telling you right in front of your face that these ancient Chinese were nappy-haired black people like you, some of them had straight hair, see? But they were like this brother that had nappy hair. Yeah, they can make a ponytail. Back in the day, I even wore a ponytail. I know you can't believe that. Looking at me now, and I don't have hardly any hair, but yes, I used to have nice hair. In this passage, Li Min is used to describe all the people in the empire, not just the peasants or the young people. In book 2, we read, in a sense, about Gao Yao. I quote, Gao Yao, with vigorous activities, sowing abroad his virtue, which has descended on the black-haired people till they cherish him in their hearts, you see. Again, the term Li Min was applied to the people of the empire, not just to a particular group. Yes, yes, yes. You have to understand in a sense that Europeans will do anything. Europeans will do anything to lead you down a path in which you will become ignorant, Very important again, but when we look in a sense at the research of Gao Bao Liu, he argues in the Predynastic Egyptian kings were the founders of Chinese civilization, i.e. Huangdi, Ludi, and Shundi. You see, look over here on the left-hand side. He says that the scorpion was a prototype of the Huang character, and he shows you in a sense at the beginning on the left-hand side as we move across, we see how this this scorpion, relating to Huang, how it was transformed into the modern symbol Huang in Chinese. You see, then when we go under it, we see in a sense how the name for one of the second kings in Dynasty 0. Most of these kings were the pre-dynastic kings. These were the kings of Egypt before we have the first dynasty. But we have evidence of these kings from looking at some of the inscriptions and some of the artifacts that researchers have discovered. For example, they say King Ka or Sekhem of Dynasty 0 was named in a sense Shun, and Shun is one of the great emperors of China. Then we can look up on the right-hand side at the top. We see Narmer. Narmer is supposed to have been King Menes, and we find that the Narmer or the fish we see in a sense was a prototype of the character for you. And then finally we see at the bottom on the right-hand side that Ivory Hor of Dynasty 0 would have been King Yao. So again, what Guangbao Liu has been able to show, he's been able in the sense to show that these kings, these were the founders of Chinese civilization. I mean, think about that. That now we have firm evidence that the emperors of Egypt, ancient Egypt, they not only conquered Egypt, Lower Egypt, Upper Egypt, the Levant, not Mesoamerica, but Mesopotamia, all the way to China. Yes, yes. This shows in a sense that Black people were expanding all the way from the Nile Valley all the way to the Yellow River in China. That's exciting news, you see. Guo Liu, he argues in his thing, in Guo Liu, he said, and I'll repeat what he says. And it's very interesting, is that he tells us that, and I quote, text comparison verified that Ivory Hor's name is exactly Yao. Another name for Ivory Hor is Ro, which is pronounced almost in the same as the Chinese character Yao. Ivory Hor confirms Emperor Yao recorded in ancient Chinese documents. Chinese people are all familiar with the names Yao, Shun, and Yu. According to Chinese literature, Shun was directly subordinate to Yu, and there was no third king between Shun, Ka, Sekhem of Egypt, and Yu, Narmer of Egypt. Here we can choose to believe that the Chinese literature records are accurate. Then the analysis of ancient Egyptologists is wrong. That is, between Ka, Sekhem, and Narmer, there was no king named King Scorpion II at all. So who does the scorpion mace head belong to? The author believes that the scorpion mace head belongs to the Yellow Emperor, Huangdi, or scorpion symbol of the pre-dynastic period of ancient Egypt, were those of the Yellow Emperor, and there were no two scorpion kings. And this comes from the fact, in the sense that the Scorpion King, they kind of don't know where they should situate this king, but they claim in a sense that these three kings would represent the three dynasties. These would represent, in a sense, the earliest dynasties in China, ancient China. You see, and we can imagine that those emperors of China would have looked like these guys, you know. The Chinese emperors, let's just assume that this could be the Chinese emperors Huang Di, Yu Di, Shun Di. D in a sense, D corresponds to Da in Manika, and Ta, because D means king in ancient Chinese. And often, in a sense, when you see a D, often that word can be a T in other languages. And so we find, in a sense, that whereas they have Huang Di, that could also be pronounced among the Mandi people. That would be Huang Da, the King Da. You know, King Huang, Yu Da, King Yu, Shun Da, King Shu. In the annals of the bamboo books, we learn that Yao devised a calendar to help regulate agrarian work through proper use of ritual and music, and created a rudimentary government. The annals of the bamboo books makes it clear that Yao, and I quote, he united and harmonized the myriad states of his dominion, and the Li Men, black people, were reformed by his cordial agreement. Yes. These kings, because see, what we find is that when you read much of the ancient literature, they often talk about, you know, states being very waterly, because it was a period when there was a lot of rain, a lot of water, and so then many of these emperors in China and even in the Nile Valley, they had to find ways, in a sense, to recover the surface land by, you know, removing some of the water. And that's why we often find, in a sense, this whole idea of flooding or watery places in the ancient books. We also read that Shu, the successor of Yao, distinguished by his reputation as an obedient, devoted son, noted to Qi that, and I quote, the black people are suffering the distress of hunger. To help relieve the people, Shun gave his throne over to Yu, the founder of the Shang dynasty. Yu, in the annals of the bamboo book, is reported to have noted that, and I quote, when a sovereign gives response to the people, he is kind, and the black people cherish him in their heart. Yes. Do you see this relationship? As I told you, is that you always see this relationship between, in a sense, the king and the people and the land, you see. You never see this relationship with Europeanized kings or Europeanized rulers, presidents, etc. They never see themselves as being associated with either the people or the land. They see themselves as a separate group above everybody else. But we see that among these black rulers, even in China, they sought this relationship with the land. They sought this relationship, you know, with other black people. And in a sense, they had to respect these other people, you know. The Scorpion King of Egypt. The Yellow Emperor of China and the Scorpion King of Egypt are two elusive figures from the ancient past that inhabit the foggy world between myth and history. Is it possible that they are the same person? Interesting, right? And this is what Wagang is trying to tell us. In 1897, British archaeologist James Quibble and Frederick W. Green were excavating the ruins of Hakun Clan, known as Nekhen in ancient Egypt and present-day Qom al-Ahmar, the capital of Upper Egypt. Beneath the Temple of Horus, they discovered a large repository of votive objects, dating from the late Old Kingdom, 2688 to 2181 BC. That included the scorpion mace head. This pharaoh is wearing the white crown of Upper Egypt. Okay, look at this mace head. In this mace head, we see the king, and the king, in a sense, is being followed by a Redna, and he has, in a sense, behind him some of his followers. And we see right next to him, we see a scorpion. And this is why they believe, in a sense, that the king represented on this mace head is the scorpion king. And he's the scorpion king that many people have been trying to find and discover, you see, in ancient Egyptian literature, history, and things like this. But this is his mace head. You see, the mace head of King Scorpion, who reigned just before Narmer in Egypt's southern lands. Scorpion center digs a canal or irrigation, while attendants help. At the top, banners of the gods carry dead birds in his name. As you can see, look at this inscription, and as you can see, we see the We see King Scorpion. We see him digging his tunnel. We also, in a sense, see this whole idea, as I told you before, back in during this period, it was so much rain, so much flooding that often, in a sense, the king had to be an engineer. The king had to be able to find means and ways to be able to clear some of the water so people could build their own settlements. That's where you're going to find that in many of these places, you find that the people lived on the top of mounds. And one of the reasons that the people lived on the top of mounds was because of the fact, in a sense, this would protect their homes from being flooded when maybe rivers overflowed or there was an abundance of rain. So we see this whole idea of the king. We see this whole idea of the leader. We see this whole idea of the emperor being able, in a sense, to build those areas in which people could live, you see, and in a way be able, in a sense, to gain, mastery over the waters that was covering much of the land at that time, you see. Huang Bao Liu argues that Scorpion II was the Chinese Emperor Huang Di. You see, Emperor Huang Di, or King Scorpion, dates back to the pre-dynastic period of ancient Egypt, maybe around 3,200 BC. As you can see, we see down at the bottom of the slide, we can see this transition from the symbols on the scorpion mace head that also, in a sense, reflect various aspects of Chinese writing. You see, but much of the Chinese writing, really, when you really look at it, is basically based on symbols that we find in the Vice script. In fact, back in the day, one of the reasons that I was able to decipher some of the Proto-Elamite, Proto-Sumerian, Indus Valley writing, and the Olmec writing is they used the same signs. Although they used the same signs, you couldn't read every sign in the Mandi language. You had to read these signs in the language that was spoken by the people who used them. For example, if you found these signs in Sumer, you had to read them in Sumerian. If you found these signs in Indus Valley, you had to read them in Tamil, because this is how they were organized, you see. And so, as you can see, on the in this illustration, which I took from Guang Bao Liu's writing, you can see how we find in front of King Scorpion, the Emperor Huang. Well, Huang is very interesting, you see. Narmer was Nimrod. I know you guys have heard of Nimrod in the Bible. Narmer was the first dynasty Naqada ruler identified by his Horus name, Hor-Aha, an ancient Egyptian name, Minij or Mini. One of the interesting things is that, remember, ancient Egyptian was not written with vowels, you see. So we find that Narmer would have the consonants N, M, R, and Nimrod would have the consonants what? N, M, R plus a D. So I believe, in a sense, that Narmer was Nimrod of the Bible, the mighty hunter. Now we know Narmer was not only, in a sense, an ancient Egyptian, but they didn't consider themselves the black people back then. They didn't consider themselves, Comedians. They considered themselves Kushites. Yes. King Narmer and the rest of those kings back at that period, they considered themselves Kushites. And that's why we know that Tarseti, which was the first nome of ancient Egypt, Tarseti, in a sense, was first considered a Kushite empire. But then when the people in Tarseti decided that they wanted to be recognized as the children of God, the black people, that's when they started calling themselves Comedians. Now we know Narmer was a Kushite. He was probably a great hunter, as indicated by the two-dog palette Narmer ruled an area extending from the Nile Valley into Mesopotamia. Okay, look up at the look at that tablet above the what we consider to be how Narmer looked. And as you can see, you see those dogs, the hunters. You see, in a sense, so we believe, in a sense, that he could represent Narmer because of the fact, in the sense, that he was a great hunter. This would explain why we read in the Bible, Cush fathered Nimrod. He was the first on earth to be a mighty man. According to Guang Bao Liu, Narmer was the Chinese emperor Yudi. Here we can find, in a sense, This is the inscription where we find Narmer's name in the direct between two boved heads. You see, this is one of the main symbols that show us who Narmer was. We see the sandal bearer of the king. This used to be a title of great honor. We see, in a sense, the 6 papyrus plants. And the 6 papyrus plants were the general symbol of Lower Egypt, or perhaps symbolize the defeating of 6,000 troops. No, it's very important that we understand this relationship of Kushites to Lower Egypt, because this, when we understand that the Kushites lived in Lower Egypt and lived down in Nubia, then we can understand, in a sense, where they got certain terms from. Okay, you can see at this map on the right-hand side, you can see the area that we consider to be the Levant. And so we know, in a sense, that the Egyptians had control all the way throughout Lebanon, modern-day Jordan, Israel, all the way into Syria. And that would be considered the Levant. Narmer ruled the Levant. The presence of Narmer's hushed, or hushed Kushite bulla at Nahal indicates that since the Levant was called Hust, or Kush, he was probably Kushite. Okay, we find, in a sense, that the word Kush appears, in a sense, first in the New Kingdom. But prior to the New Kingdom, the Kushites were not called Kush, they were called Hux. The modern interpretation of Gardner's Egyptian sign N25 as Hux is wrong. There's no evidence that the T should be added to Hux. As a result, I believe that N25 was originally Hux, not Hux. Okay, if you look on the right-hand side, this is the Nahil Tilla Bulla, and these symbols on the that you see on this bulla, they represent Hux or Kush, and Hux Kushite. So as you can see, Narmer was one of the first Kushites, and that's understandable because remember, Taseti, which was the first nome of Egypt. In other words, if it was the first nome, they were the ones who began to found the so-called the Egyptian dynasties. Then we find, in a sense, that they were identified at first as a Kushite city. So we see, in a sense, that although the Egyptians were originally Kushites, they later decided to call themselves Comedians or Kametru, which means, in a sense, the black people. The Kushites, beginning with Narmer, early colonized the Levant and the rest of Eurasia. The Kushites were called Hux in Lower Egypt and the Levant. Kushites had settled in the Levant since Narmer times. We find Narmer's name on jars and syrinx from excavations in Israel and Palestine. For example, you can find these artifacts at Tel Irani, Arad, In Basur, Halif Terrace, Nahal Tila, and more. A bullet dating to this period makes it clear that this part of the Negev, yes, the Negev, was called Hux. You see, that's where we get the Hux. See, the so-called Hyksos, when they talk about that the Hyksos came from Asia, no, the Hyksos were not Semitic speakers. They did not come from Asia. They always lived in Lower Egypt, and it's pronounced Hux. You see, so the original name for the Kushites in Lower Egypt was Hux. Upper and Lower Egypt became united around 3150 BCE. After the Upper Egyptian leader Menes, also named as Narmer, led his military forces to defeat Lower Egypt. Menes became the first king to rule over both Upper and Lower Egypt, and as you may have ruled in China. Very important to understand. But let's look at this idea. Look at this image. I was using Chat GPT, and I asked them to create an image of Narmer. Narmer as the Egyptian pharaoh Narmer as the Chinese emperor view, and this image has been created showing Narmer, the ancient Egyptian pharaoh, reimagined as the Chinese emperor Yu. His attire and setting reflect a fusion of ancient Egyptian and Chinese cultural elements. I think it was a cool representation. And, it's very important. And we see so many elements of Egyptian civilization, but it was kind of, in a sense, a little bit changed to reflect. See, that's one of the things that a lot of people understand, is that we are a very creative people. Since we are very creative people, even though we may have iconography that goes back to Africa, sometimes when we take this iconography to other places, we'll make little slight differences and things like that, And so then this is why we find, in a sense, this uniqueness and how we can reimagine, in a sense, this being Emperor Narmer as a Chinese. You see? Again, this is how they saw it, and they say scorpion, and they say that those symbols in front of scorpion really represent Emperor Huang Di. Chinese tradition maintains that civilization came to China from the west, probably Egypt and Elam. The Chinese legends designate various culture heroes as the inventors of various aspects of Chinese civilization. Huang Di introduced boats, carts, chariots, the bow and arrow, ceramics, wooden houses, and writing. Yes, yes. Huang Di is reputed to have been born about 2704 BC and to have begun his rule as emperor in 2697. His legendary reign is credited with the introduction of wooden boats, carts, boats, and the bow and arrow and writing. The Chinese term for emperor is Di. Huang Di, the Yellow Emperor, is a Chinese culture hero credited with all of those things that I've mentioned previously. His name was pronounced, now listen to this, Huang Di, his name was pronounced in Old Chinese, Yuai Huang Di, Huang Di, Ohuna Kunte. I repeat, Huang Di's name was pronounced Huna Kunte. Are you familiar? Does that sound familiar? Huna Kunte? It should. Because if you saw roots, remember they said that fellow was a member of the Mandingo people, and he belonged to Kunta Kinte. Kunta Kinte. And here we find, in a sense, that Huang Di, when you pronounce it in Old Chinese, is Huna Kunte. So we find, in a sense, that Huang Di, the first emperor of China, he belonged to the Hakun clan. And I know you're saying, Dr. Winters, how the hell can he be an Egyptian belonging to the Mandingo clan? I'm going to tell you why. Egypt was a pan-African civilization. There was not just one tribe of Egyptians. There were many different tribes. Each nome was a different tribe. Each nome had a different god. The Egyptian language was not, in a sense, a language that was spoken by a single group. The Egyptian language was a lingua franca. And the people in Egypt used this lingua franca, ancient Egyptian, to be able to communicate with each other, because many of them spoke different languages. I mean, how many Africans have you met that can speak 3 or 4 languages? See? But often, in a sense, they live in areas where there's a number of different tribal groups or different nations, and therefore they learn these names. And so we find, in a sense, that Huang Di, the first ruler of China, Shia China, would have belonged to the Hunna-Kunte clan. You see? Hunna-Kunte, he's a culture hero, and he's the one who brought in the chariots. He's the one who brought in there the horses. He's the one who brought in there riding. It's so exciting, But let's go further. Lamites introduced civilization to China. The idea that King Nahunte was of non-Mongoloid origin is not a new idea. It was first advanced by Le Couperet and others who maintained that the Elamites, or people from the West, introduced civilization to China. Thierry de Le Couperet said that Huang Di was Nahunte, the first leader of the Bak, who migrated to China with his people. And this is very interesting. Here we can see some chariot burials. The Elamites, or the old Persians, were descendants of the Mandi people. Yes, yes. Many of the Elamites were Mandi-speaking people. I know it's hard to believe. But I'm telling you, when you really look at these ancient languages, and that's why a lot of my early articles that I wrote back in the 80s and the 90s dealt with the Elamite language and their relationship with the Mandingo language. This is obvious in the language and names of the Elamite kings. I hope you remember the book Roots. The main character, Kunta Kinte, his name is interesting because we have the following ruler during the Su Dynasty. And his name was what? This was a ruler of Elam, and his name was Ketur Nahunte. What? His name was Ketur Nahunte? You mean he had the same name almost of Nahunte, the leader of the Shia dynasty? Yes, because these people were related to the Kunta clan, who conquered southern Babylonia. The name Ketur Nahunte would correspond to a popular Mandi Kunta among the Mandi-speaking people. You know, Sister Shanice on her radio program, they teach the Mandi language every week. You might want to check out her radio program. The Chinese histories tell us much about Shia. Chinese civilization began along the Yellow River. Here the soil was fertile and black Chinese farmers grew millet 4,000 years ago and later soybeans. They also raised pigs and cattle. By 3500 BC, the blacks in China were raising silkworms and making silk. The culture hero Huang Di is a direct link to Africa. His name was pronounced in Old Chinese Yoha Kwandi Hunak Hunte. He was supposed to have arrived in China from the west in 2282 BC and settled along the banks of the Luo River in Shaanxi. This transliteration of Huang Di to Hunak Hunte is interesting because Kunte is a common clan name among the Mandi speakers in West Africa. The Africans or blacks that founded civilization in China were often called Li Min, as I discussed earlier, the black people, by the Zhao dynasty. The term has affinity to the Sumero-Akkadian term Sagiga, which means black people or black-headed people. These Li Min are associated with the Chinese cultural hero Yao, which I discussed earlier. Yes. This is so hard to believe. It's so hard to believe. But like I said, if you go to Africa now, you can buy these hats, You'll see farmers in the fields wearing these same hats in the Gambia, who have many of the same surnames as, the people of China today. The leader of Shia was granted the rule of China based on their Su. The name in ancient Chinese for the clan was Su, membership. The Xia naming system employed the 10 celestial stems, the same as the Shang people. This Su clan goes back to the Su tribe of ancient Egypt and Elam. And also in a sense, in the Mandingo language, the word Su is also the name for the nation and the people, Su. So Su is a common term. The original Su Empire was founded by the Anu. The second Su Empire was founded by Mandi speakers. It is important to remember that the Mandi people in ancient times inhabited the Nile Valley, Libya, and the Levant. The Mandi had established colonies not only in the Levant, but also Mesopotamia and China. That's why we have the Elamites and the Medes speaking a Mandi language. The center of the Su Empire was in Upper Egypt and Kush. This area from Elephantine to Philae was called Noon. Over time, the Su Empire migrated to Cameroon and Chad. Yes, this would be the old Philae Island, and this was the center of the Su Empire. Yes. What are you talking about, Dr. Winters? That is Egypt. Stop. What are you doing, trying to blow my mind? No, I don't want to blow your mind. No, I don't want to give you a headache. What I want to do is give you the real history. A lot of black people, they keep taking everything that Europeans say about ancient Egypt, and they teach it as fact. Some of that stuff needs to be researched. We need to have people researching this ancient Egyptian history to really see if everything you've been taught is the truth. The upper picture is the Mandi city of Garaman. The lower picture is the Mandi Sapat of Kemet. Yes. Here we have in a sense Garima, and we have in a sense the Mandi Sipat of Kemet. The Mandi speakers include the Mandinka, Soninke, Bambara, Capelli, Jula, Bozo, Minde, Susu, and Vai. There are around 60 to 75 languages spoken by 30 to 40 million people belonging to the Mandi speakers. Today they live chiefly in Burkina Faso, Mali, Senegal, the Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Ivory Coast, Mauritania, Ghana, and also in northwestern Nigeria and northern Benin. So you can see these people all over the place, you know. It is important to remember that the Mandi people inhabited the Nile Valley, Libya, and the Levant. The Mandi had established colonies not only in the Levant, but also Mesopotamian China. The center of the Su Empire was in Upper Egypt and Kush. The area from Levantine to Philae was called Noon. These are some of the Kushite artifacts that you find. An early king of Su was Sheshi. Sheshi ruled for 19 years. It appears that his authority extended to the Hyksos, Kushites in Lower Egypt. Sheshinshi was married to a Nubian named Tati. Their son was Nessi. After Shinshi's death, the throne was given over to Pharaoh Nessi Arsekre. See, again, as I tell you, is that these Sheshi and later Nessi, although they are recognized as pharaohs in Egypt, they were also emperors of the Su Empire. Yes. They controlled an area, not only in a sense in Upper and Lower Egypt, they also controlled, as you can see, parts of Elam, China, you see? And then we know that the Olmec people, they call themselves Shu, so they may have also been part of this ancient Su Empire. The theocratic centers of Su were Philae or Ambo. In the text of Nehisi have been found at Nuptigasti and Kasi, Mendes, Sais, and the capital of Su was Ambo. Yes, Ambo. This would be one of the periods there. And here we can see, in a sense, one of the pharaohs that would have been part of the Su Empire. Here we can see this is another building from Ambo, which was the center of the Su Empire, which was situated in Egypt. The Su people worshipped a number of gods, including Set, Nith, and Benibdied. Benibdied was a unifying god for the Su, because this god was the spirit of Geb, Osiris, Re, Ra, and Shu. The major center of Benibdied worship was Mendes. Philae was the symbolic seat of the Kushite high god. So you see how this Mendes, the nome Mendes, was probably a nome where you found a lot of Mandi speakers or Mandingo speakers. Here's some of their gods. The most famous king of the second Su Empire was Nessi. King Nessi was the son of Shishe. Nessi was a 14th century dynasty king of Egypt. Here you can see, a picture of Nessi. Just imagine, he was not only the pharaoh of Egypt, but he was also the leader of the Su Empire. The throne name of Nessi was Seri. Stelas of Nessi have been found in Tel El Mugdan, Tel Habua, Tel El Dad, Tajuru. Nessi made many offerings to Benabdied. So these are some of his, some of the various, inscriptions that mention the name of Nessi. So we know that Nessi was a pharaoh. And we know from the ancient Indian literature, the Purana, Rigveda, and other literature, that Nessi was also the leader of the Su Empire. Nessi was loved by people from Kush to Canaan. Dr. Srinivasan makes it clear that Nessi was a Su. Srinivasan made clear Nessi was called Nahusha in Indian texts. Yes. when you read these ancient texts, the Puranas, and they talk about Nahusha, they're talking about Nessi, the leader of the Sioux Empire. The leaders of the Sioux Empire were predominantly Manding speaking people. The name Sioux comes from the Mandi word Si, which meant black people and nation. Thus, the addition of a U to Sioux to make it plural gives the word Sioux. So Sioux goes back to Si, singular, Sioux, plural. And again, this empire, this Sioux Empire was centered at ancient Umbo in Egypt. The Shia civilization of China and the Lam were part of the Sioux Confederation. The Sioux founded and belonged to Sioux and the Lam nations were Mandi speakers of Si. You see, the Mandi people of Africa clan claim they belong to the Sioux clan. The term Si corresponds to the name Z applied to the Shia founders. Do you see how in China that S was changed to a Z, so we have CZ. But we can see this relationship. In summary, the Sioux Empire extended from the Nile Valley to China. I wrote a book on the Sioux Empire, and you can buy this book. Go to my website and get the book. It's the history of the Sioux Empire. Get this book, History of the Sioux Empire. In this book, I explained that the center of the Sioux Empire was in Upper Egypt and Kush, the area from Elephantine to Philae that was called Noon. In History of the Sioux Empire, you will learn that the Mandi people formerly inhabited the Nile Valley, Libya, and the Levant. You will read about the archaeological, epigraphic, and linguistic evidence confirming that the Mandi-speaking people established colonies not only in the Levant, but also Mesopotamia and China. Get this book, History of the Sioux Empire. Okay, we find in a sense that Johannes Gunnar Anderson found the red and black pottery in China. In China, we have red and black pottery, and we also find that one of the evidences of the Kushite people was red and black pottery. And we find also the red and black pottery in Egypt. The black and red ware, common to the Fertile African Crescent, was also used in China. There's affinity between the black and red ware from Nubia and the pottery from Yaoshao sites in Henan and Gansu sites of ancient China. The Africans or blacks that founded civilization in China were called Li Men, black people, by the Zhao Dynasty. This term has affinity to the Sumero-Akkadian term Sagiga, black-headed people. These Li Men are associated with the Chinese cultural hero Yao, you see. We also find mention of them in the bamboo books, and we discussed that earlier. Mark Washington, he did a whole lot of good stuff. And what Mark Washington was able to do, he lives over in Hungary today with his wife and children. But Mark, he's a brother, from Philadelphia, and Mark made this beautiful pictorial that includes many of the figures that come from various African civilizations. Chinese civilizations. You see, many of these faces are found on the people on this bronze roof, And this is supposed to be related to the Dian people, but when you look at the faces, and that's what makes it so. These artists were so fantastic, and that when they crafted these art figures, these are representative figurines of ancient peoples. They gave them, the features of African people, wide noses, big lips, things like that, and I think that's quite interesting, and just also to show the ability of these people, the greatness of these people, and the character of their culture and civilization. It is just magnificent. Here's some more stuff that was done, and the one on the left side, it was done by Mark Washington. On the right hand side, you can see some of the various statues that they found in some of the excavations. But again, all these statues were published in America. They were published prior to the People's Republic of China, and because what I found is that I used to a lot of times I used to go to the stacks at the University of Chicago, and I looked at a lot of the Chinese archaeology archaeology publications, and they rarely or would never put in there these pictures. They never wanted to put in these magazines and these archaeological journals pictures of the artifacts that they found. And and one of the reasons that they didn't want to put pictures of these artifacts that they found in the various tombs was they found that they looked like Black people, African people. And they didn't want us to know that ancient Chinese civilization was also a civilization that we founded. People like you, people like me, people like us. We're the ones who founded. We were the first rulers, we were the first emperors of China, as I've been discussing so far. If you want to find out more about the Blacks of China, again, get my book, The Ancient Blacks of China. Already talked about history of the Sioux Empire. Get that book, The Mandi Civilizations of Africa and Asia. It'll give you more detail about Kunta Hana Hunta Kunta. And I didn't really go into a lot of it now because I basically just wanted you to see these names of the Chinese emperors. They go back to Chinese. That not only in the sense go back to Chinese, but how we can see that even the construction of the Egyptian hieroglyphics, were used to construct the various symbols in the Mandarin or Chinese language. And of course, if you want to learn how to do comparative linguistics, if you want to learn why we can compare languages and why we can use these comparisons of language to be able to show a connection between various ancient peoples, get my book, African Historical Linguistics. It's the only book that you're going to find that explains how you can use historical linguistics to examine and study African languages. You're not going to find any other book. Nobody's ever written a book on this, but this book, African Historical Linguistics, it will help you to do that. And one of the things that's very important you have to understand is that, there's a relationship between Chinese and African scripts. Okay, look at this figure on the left-hand side. You can see how the oracle bone inscriptions written by the Shang. You can see the Manding syllabary, and you can also see symbols from ancient Brazil. And look how they're the same signs. You see? Then you can also see how Sanskrit, Ethiopic, and Manding, the same signs. It's the same signs because these same people took this writing system. This writing system was developed in ancient times in Africa. In fact, it really goes back to the Anu time, because the Anu or the Twa people, I believe that they were the first ones, I think, to use the Mandi language. And then some of the descendants who had adopted their culture, the Mandi-speaking people today, carry on this language. But I think that the original language of the Anu, at least the lingua franca, because as I said before, Black people like to use a lot of lingua franca. And I believe that the lingua franca of, in a sense, the original Anu people was the Mandi language. Then you say, how can a lingua franca become, in a sense, a common language? Well, that's easy. Look at how we found that the reason that Champollion was able to decipher and read ancient Egyptian was because the Coptic people were using their language, in a sense, is almost identical to ancient Egyptian. And he was able to use Coptic to decipher the Egyptian hieroglyphics. We know very little about the sounds of ancient Chinese because ancient Chinese was different from Old Chinese and Middle Chinese and the modern Chinese dialects. I did that research on that. The pronunciation of Chinese has been changing over the years. This results from the fact that the Chinese dynasties were founded by diverse ethnic groups, e.g. Shia and Chang. They were found on the Black Shang. They were founded by people who spoke Dravidian and Mandi languages, whereas Xiangyin was founded by classical Mongoloid people. When I talk about classical Mongoloid people, I'm not talking about the tall Chinese, the tall Mongoloid people. When I say classical Mongoloid people, these would be the original Mongoloid people, and they would be represented, by people like the Filipinos, the Chinese, people in Vietnam, kind of short Asian people, East Asian people. These would be your classical Mongoloid. Whereas in a sense, the taller Mongoloid people, these are the representatives of a much more, modern population. This explains the difference in pronunciation for ancient Chinese spoken by the Shia and Chang people and Old and Middle Chinese, or a variant thereof, which was probably spoken by the Zhao people. Again, if you want to learn more about comparative linguistics and historical linguistics, get my book, African Historical and Linguistics. You know, the Mandi and Chinese languages, they show a whole lot of unity. Yes. You're saying to yourself, here we go again. Here's Dr. Winters bringing up some ish, but I'm going to show you the receipts, you see. The identification of the first hero of China, Hakun, as a member of the Hakun Clan of the Mandi speakers of Africa is supported by the close relationship between the Mandi languages and Chinese. Yes, these languages are related. In fact, Buddhism really came from the Nile Valley, but that's another story, you know. The Mandi language was originally a lingua franca used by the Anu during the original Su Dynasty. Even though we do not know the ancient pronunciation of many Chinese signs, Chinese and Mandi words show a lot of unity, a lot of comparison. Chinese and Mandi share many typological features. These features include reduplication for emphasis and the use of suffixes to form words. In Chinese, the Z suffix is joined to many nouns, e.g., tizi, wife, or tizi, ladder, or jinzi, gold. This Z suffix corresponds to the Mandi use of si, that one, those, e.g., yesi, that man. The suffix tao is used to form place words, e.g., itao, inside, and qian front. In Manding, the word for place was ta. The Chinese R suffix is used to form nouns, e.g., hua, to paint, hua, pictures. This corresponds to the Mandi suffix ra, which transforms verbs into noun, e.g., ki, to send, into kiira, a messenger. So again, we see these typological features that show this relationship between the Chinese language and Mandi. But look at this. You know, there's a close relationship between many Chinese and Chinese and the Mandi language. For example, we have B, D, bin, town, T, negative suffix. Da, to cut, down, destroy, and te, a negative suffix. Da, to alter, ta, to put in. Do, to rot, toli, to rot. Da, for heal, tembo, for heal. D, supreme ruler, tiki in a sense, you know, the supreme ruler in Mandi, you see. We see a relationship between D and D in both languages. We have da great in Chinese, and we have D and da that also mean great in Mandi. In Chinese, we have D for child, and in Mandi, we have D for child. In Chinese, we have da for big, we have D for several, more than one. We have, in a sense, a correspondence, in a sense, between other words. And as you can see in this list, that you can see very close relationships. For example, you know, we have the Chinese word for cow is new, and the Mandi word for cow is ni. Then we have xian for heart, and then si for breast. So as you can see, we also might find many vocabulary items. There's more vocabulary items than these, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of information on these close cognate words. Cognate mean words that have similar sounds and meaning. You see, we compared 46 cognate Chinese and Mandi terms. These terms can be divided into 3 sets of cognate items. 1, words in both languages with equivalent meaning with full correspondence. 2, words with consonants showing assimilation. And 3, words with equivalent meanings but lacking similar phonetic values. Using this criteria, we find that the cognate rate for corresponding Chinese and Mandarin terms are the following percentages: 54%. 54% of the terms show full correspondence. 30% show cognate terms with alternating consonants, e.g. D becomes T and P becomes B, and etc. And 15% of these items are unrelated. Yes. Again, in a sense, a fuller study of this is in some of my published papers. I got those listed in the bibliography. If you want to get this bibliography, you got to, in a sense, join my Patreon, and then you can see the slides. In summary, the ancient rulers of China were Black African people. These black people ruled China for hundreds of years. It was these blacks who introduced writing, temple building, and other aspects of Chinese civilization, including the Mandarin language. Yes, they included it. Here's the bibliography. And again, this bibliography includes articles that discuss all aspects of the material presented in this lecture. And it also tells you how to find the Guanbaoliu article on the that shows the relationship between the first rulers of China and, in a sense, the Egyptian rulers. Again, if you want to find out more information, get my book, The Ancient Blacks of China, History of the Sioux Empire, African Historical Linguistics. You can order these books at Amazon.com. See, we have a great history. The world history of Black people is so interesting, so varied. But again, in a sense, that's one of the reasons that we need these books. You need these books because these books can help you to find how to do further research and to move more. It gives you those insights, give you those, in a sense, those blueprints, gives you that map that can help you to maybe go and study other aspects of ancient, Black history. Again, in a sense, you can get my books. I already mentioned them. Don't forget. Also, I wrote a book on Buddhism, and it's called The African Origin of Buddhism and the Civilization of India. Get this book. It's the middle book. In this book, I explain how Buddhism came from the Nile Valley. Yes. I explain how even Buddha, in a sense, came from the Nile Valley. You see, and this is based upon receipts. This is based upon information from the Purana, the Veda, and other ancient texts. And then you can always get my book, The Ancient Black Civilization of Asia. This breaks down, in a sense, all of these ancient civilizations. If you're interested in the African origin of world writing system, and in this book, The African Origin of World Writing Systems, I also discuss how the world languages didn't originate just in outer space. It didn't originate in Europe. It originated in Africa. You see, and I give you all of the receipts, and I show you how to find out more information. If you want to find out where writing systems developed, if you want to find out where the languages of the world developed, get my book, African Origin, World Writing Systems. And then, of course, if you want to find out about the relationship between the Egyptian language and African languages, get my book, The Egyptian Language, The Mountains of the Moon, Niger-Congo Speakers, and the Origin of Egypt. In this book, I talk about, in the sense, that Egypt was a Pan-African civilization. I talk about the relationship between ancient Egyptian and various African languages that belong to the Niger-Congo family. Okay. Again, you can go to Patreon to see the slides. You can go to Twitter, at Dr. Winters 8. And, I usually put something on Twitter every now and then. You can go to TikTok.com, Clyde Winters #3. You can view my shorts. Here on this platform, on this channel, I have almost 300 videos that discuss all aspects of Black history. And you can order my books at Amazon.com. I was very excited this week. I was very excited because Jada Prasad, one of my Patreon members, she just published a book. Congratulations, Jada. And Jada's book is called Ancient Blacks in Cambodia, the Khmer Empire. See, get this book. This is a very exciting book, and I'm very proud of her because she's been contacting me off and on since she became a member of my Patreon, and I'm so glad that she's taken her ideas one step further. She not only, in a sense, wanted to really become deeply involved in understanding about Black history, but she wrote this fine book, Ancient Blacks in Cambodia, the Khmer Empire, by Jada Prasad. You can get this book and go to Amazon.com, order this book. It's an easy to read book. It's a great book. It gives you some pictures, plus it gives you some historical information. Get this book by Jada. And remember, it's called Ancient Blacks in Cambodia, the Khmer Empire. Again, congratulations, Jada. Also, again, as I said earlier, check out Yoshimod. It's Black History Month. Get this information so you can share it with your children.
Family, I'm excited to tell you about something super special and educational. This Black History Month, Yoshimod has created an amazing collection of PDFs all about incredible Black inventors and their amazing achievements. Do you know about Mae Jemison, the first FBA woman astronaut? Or Percy Julian, who made groundbreaking discoveries in chemistry? These are just a couple of the amazing people you'll learn about in these PDFs. These PDFs are perfect for teachers, homeschooling parents, or anyone who loves learning. They're filled with fun facts and inspiring stories that make learning about Black history exciting. Only $3 for a journey through history with some of the most influential Black inventors and scientists. Just click the link in the description to grab your copies from Yoshimod's Gumroad store. And don't forget to check out Yoshimod's other amazing creations and music on Spotify. Let's learn, have fun, and celebrate Black history together.
These are easy to read material. You can share with your children. You and your children can read it together. It's a good way to have the whole family really learn about various heroes in Black history. You know, Usman Dan Fodio, he was a mujahideen in West Africa, and he said that the best way for children to learn their history and to develop a self-esteem and a positive self-identity is to know about their heroes. This material written by Yoshimod can help you and your children to know about it. You know, you got to be B1 right now. Hug your lady, hug your child, hug somebody. Just grab somebody and hug them and say, "B1, Black first." The only way that we can be successful is to remember that we have to be Black first. Anything else is going to cause disunity, and it's this unity that destroyed us. Again, Yoshimod, he also has services that he can offer you. So check this video out.
At Yoshimod Productions, we're here to take your brand and creativity to new heights. From EPTs to AI commercials, animated music commercials to animated AI bios, book covers to picture flyers, and so much more, we've got you covered. Our team is dedicated to delivering high quality, cutting-edge designs that leave a lasting impression. And for our valued clients, we offer exceptional creativity, a customer-centric approach, and work that reflects the latest trends and technologies. Just about making art. We're about creating experiences. Your brand, your vision, our artistry. Professionalism and reliability are the cornerstones of everything we do. We're more than a service, we're your creative partners. If you're ready to make your brand shine, look no further than Yoshimod Productions. Join us in the journey of creativity. Contact us today and let's make your vision a reality.
Thank you everybody for joining the looking at the joining me today for the video. Thank you for coming in. How you doing, King and Dreams? What about Seven Scales? Sandra Hen, what up, though? Sister Janice? Let me see. Any other people? David Jr., Team Zulo, Chemistry Black Magic. What up, though? Jade Sukra. Medicine Simplocus. Okay, welcome. How all are you guys doing? Again, we have a few minutes. It's only about 4:30. Did you have any? If you have any questions about about this particular presentation, you can put them in the chat, and I'll try to answer them. You know, how you doing, Cool Dude? Cool Dude is a great teacher. He's up in New York City. He's teaching our kids. He's making them strong. He's making them into warriors, and this is what we do, what we need. How you doing, Dave Jr.? Well, are there any questions or anything that you wanted to that you wanted me to talk about or answer? We have a few. We have a few more minutes. Okay, JP, thank you so much, Dr. Winters, for mentioning my book. I really appreciate you. Um, that's kind of cool. But I mean, hey, I appreciate the fact that you're there trying to support me, because you don't have to support me at all, but you do, and because you and other people support me in my Patreon, that's what makes things good. Carol, what happened to the blacks in China? Were they driven out? Some of them were driven out. Many of them, in a sense, were killed off. But what happened is that many of them were slowly driven south, where they were driven out of North China, and most of them were driven into Southeast China, or what we call, in a sense, Southeast China. Like where we find Angkor Wat and all those. That's one of the reasons why I found the publication that's why I found the publication of JP's book so interesting, because many of the people who had ruled China, Dravidian and Mandi speakers, they were pushed into South China. I mean, into Southeast Asia, and they lived among the people there who were predominantly Dravidian speakers, and also people from Ethiopia. Okay, Dr. Winters, did the Chinese traveled to China and Japan and established the dynasties there? Well, we already talked about, Sandra, we already talked about the fact that they did, in a sense, establish the empires in China. They also were in Japan, because, see, many people don't know that one of the first gods of the ancient Japanese is Amma. And if you know, Amma is the Ammon of Ammon of the ancient Egyptian inscriptions. Okay, Sister Shanice says, I came across a really interesting quote from Homer, 8th century. He said that the Ethiopians are to be found at the east and west extremities of the world. Yes, when he used the word back then, the word Ethiopian was another word for the Kushites. So that was the Kushites, to distinguish them from the ancient from the Egyptians. Yes, that's why we find the Kushites in Lower Egypt, and Kushites in what we would call Nubia today. We also found Kushites in Sumer, Sumeria, and the only difference is that the Kushites in Asia, they wore beards, whereas the Kushites in Africa didn't wear beards. It's very interesting, though. The Kushites in Africa, they mainly wore in a sense the fake beard sometime, but in the East they wore real beards. Dave Jr., is that a treehouse or cover of African origin of Chinese architecture book? I have been I don't know about a Chinese architecture book. Most of the illustrations in this presentation, I developed them using Chat GPI 4, Chat GPI 4, and I do have an account with Kuiva, and Sister Shanice been trying to teach me how to do it, but I'm a little thick. But many of the pictures many of the images of the kings that I made that are black people showing Egyptian and Egyptian, iconography in both of them. I had those made by Chat GPT. How you doing, Justice Bay? I can't argue with this, Justice. 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons equal carbon. Melanin, black existence, life. Yes, yes. All life is based upon carbon. Yes, all life is based upon carbon. If they cut into your skull and they open up your brain, they're going to find all these black genes. You know what they call your brain? They call your brain the superior nigra. I just call your brain the super nigger. Yes, sir. The super nigger. Is this a question? Dr. Winters, did the Chinese travel? Yeah, already. Yeah, they did. They did travel to China. You know, did the Chinese travel to China and Japan and establish the dynasties there? No, the Chinese, they came from Chinese came from the Tian Shan Mountains. If you notice, you know the white people say they came from the Caucasus Mountains. Then you know the ancient Egyptians allegedly said they came from the mountains of the moon. Where the Chinese, they claim they came from the Tian Shan Mountains. I think as I talked about the melanosynthesis theory, the melanosynthesis theory, what that is that God develops different groups and he put them up in the mountains. Then later they come down from the mountains. And when they come down from the mountains, what they do in a sense is that, you know, when they do come down from the mountains, what they do is, in a sense, they would maybe take over the civilizations in the valley who became weak. Carol asked me, when is your next session devoted to Q and A exclusively? I might do that one Sunday. You know, I'll decide on that, and then you know we'll maybe do that. I used to do that on Sundays, but now I'm working with Yoshimot. I'll try to find a time. I'll try to find a time. I'll announce it mainly in my Patreon and put it in other places. How you doing, D. Foster? This is correct. As D. Foster said, Israelites wore beards. Yeah. Again, Kudu, I'm good, Brother Winters. Glad to see your students bringing forth more B1 historical research books and articles. Yeah, and I'm glad. I'm really glad that you're still teaching. And I know they're going to hate it in New York when you stop teaching and retire. But keep on hammering into those young people who they are, and what they can become. That's the only way that we can have a future for our children. Okay, CGI Kid, I did a slide on Hitler in my presentation that I sent you, Dr. Winters, and I provided the textual information from the 1937 congressional record. Hitler was swarthy and dark skinned. I'm going to I'll look at that again, and that is some important information. But again, like I said, is that so many Germans had that, because some people even say that Hitler was also Jewish. Dave Jaw, the Mark Washington book. You know, Mark, he hasn't written a book. I used to tell him back in the day, I'll send him another message, because, you know, like I said, he's over in Hungary now, and that's where he lives now. So, you know, I'll check with him and see if he would like to maybe do a book. You know, because it's a little bit easier now. Okay. Justice Bay, Dr. Willis' books are a must for serious researchers. Thank you. Thank you for your support, Justice. Okay, Team Zulu. Was Yaskue a slave, or did he moor the ship? You know, they always say that he was a slave. You know, this is supposed to be the first samurai, the first Japanese samurai. I don't know. I think that he, you know, I doubt if he was a slave, you know. But again, remember, as many Moors had to pretend to be Moriscos. And a Morisco was a Moor who had converted to Christianity. So I wouldn't necessarily say he was a slave, but, you know, white people, anybody that was black that was around at that time, they want to make it appear that they were a slave. I don't know if he was really a slave or not. How you doing, Darlene X? Yeah, the first rulers were black. Wow. Yes, they were, Darlene. Yes, they were. The thing is, this is that the European is constantly lying to us. He's constantly denying things because he don't want you to know. See, remember, if he really told you a true history of our people, he couldn't tell you that your child can't learn in school. He couldn't tell you in a sense that your child can't be an engineer. He couldn't tell you in the sense that your child can't be a doctor, a lawyer, etc. But they need that. They need to be able, in a sense, to tell our children lies so that they can be able to hold them back. Okay, JP, by the way, my book is free right now for a limited time. Okay, it's free, but go in and get the book. Again, like I said, it's a very good book. I if I would have known it was free, I wouldn't have paid the money, but I paid money to get my copy. Love it, love it, love it. This is a great book. Get it, and if it's free, you guys are going to love it. So hurry up and order that book. It's great. It makes more and more sense why they are whitewashing history. They have to whitewash history because, see, if they don't whitewash history, how can they hold you back? How can they tell your kid is dumb? How can they make you, in a sense, allow them to denigrate your kids and make your kids feel that it's hopeless for them to have a future? If they don't teach you these lies, they are always out there. They are always, in a sense, wanting to make our children feel inferior because it's through their inferiority that they're able to feel good about themselves. Okay, Carol says that you are wonderful and a great author. Thank you, Carol. I'm glad that you enjoy my books. But what makes me even feel even more wonderful is that you came to the program, that you're in the chat, and hopefully you're going to tell one of your friends or your family members, or have maybe your kid or cousin or somebody look at this. And that's what is wonderful, Carol. It's wonderful that when we can be one and that we can spend our time, in a sense, helping each other instead of holding each other back. Because, see, it's very sad that one of the reasons that the Europeans continue to dominate us is that we're always trying to hold each other back instead of saying, hey, pick up that brother, pick up that sister, grab them by the hand. Don't let them fall by the wayside. But we often allow our family and friends, we often allow them to fall to the wayside. And because they fall to the wayside, what happens in a sense is that we lose them. Everybody's always saying, if only we could have Black unity, if only we could have total unity. You do not need total unity. You do not need total unity. A good example is, look at what those people did after George Floyd was murdered. Look how they tore down statues, made the legislatures get rid of statues, made the names of our ships be changed. That wasn't thousands, that wasn't millions, that wasn't 100 million, 40 million. That was what? That was a few Black people who decided. And then look how it spread over there to England. And over there in England, our foundational Black Britons, the Predynastic, the people in Britain, they started tearing down statues. They started, in a sense, being there to take their own authority, to take their own needs and their own desires and their hopes, and they put it in their own hands. Yes, we need people to stand up, Okay, Sandra, we're all wonderful. Love is always present. You got that right. Love is everything. I know that people always say that when people get old, they always talk about love. We like love when we're young too, but that love is a little bit different. But when you get old, then you can really see how important it is that we have plutonic love, that we have love in the sense that is for everybody, and that's a very important thing that we try to do. Okay, Buddha, Kemetic name was Abu. He was Kemetic priest. Yeah, kind of, but the names are somewhat always changing, But Justice Bay, Justice Bay has that connection with the people who have been the the Jolies and the griots. So I mean, hey, thank you for that information, Justice. Okay, darling, Nash, you're right. We just need to get on code more. Yeah, we need to get on code. We need to, in a sense, understand what's going on. I think that today Professor Black had a very good talk today, and what he talked about the fact that how those people, how those Arabs, how they decided that they want something for their vote, and they're demanding, that we do something for our vote, and then we got people who pretend to be Black Power, like Karen Hunter and Greg Carr, and these people are supposed to be Black Power. They got a program. They build up narrative. Canubia, I belong to both of those things, and I listen to them every Saturday. But instead of them realizing that we need to stand up for ourselves, we need to demand reparations, we need to demand things that can help us, they're telling us that we should just vote no matter what. We should just vote for Biden no matter that he hasn't did anything. And see, that's why we have to get on code. We have to get on code, and we have to be serious about the code, like Joan says, like Joan is right. All we need is a serious, core on code. That's right. It doesn't take millions. Don't ever make them think that everybody got to be unified. Okay, Chemistry Black Magic said, do you believe that Narmer went to Asia himself or his forces? I think he may have went to Asia himself. These people, they didn't care about that stuff. If we can believe that Alexander went all the way from Greece, why couldn't he go all the way back? Because remember, he was just moving forward and forward and forward. Then later he came back to Lower Egypt, and it was in Lower Egypt, in a sense, that we began to see this relationship. But see, we've been taught this lie. Is that we've been taught this lie that the only Semitic speakers were from the family of Shem, and it was only people who spoke Semitic who in a sense were the ancient Hebrews. Okay. But we know that the ancient Hebrews really came out of Egypt. So it was Cushites who spoke Semitic languages too. And so that's what we had to stop. We had to stop going off of this thing that it's a special people here, it's a special people there. Everybody want to be special. You see, the Egyptians, they felt that they could be special by saying that they were coming true. Because the Bible, the Quran, they teach you that the first man was Adam, and that Adam was black according to his what Adamu was black or red according to the definition of Adamu in the Bible concordance, Bible dictionary, and in the Quran concordances. So we know that the Egyptians, they said they were black because they were saying they were the children of God. Today the Hebrews say they are the children of God. Today the Ashkenazis say they're the children of God. Everybody's saying they're the children of God. What I really believe, I'm not against anybody. What I really believe is that anybody who believes in God sincerely is a child of God. That's what I believe. But again, that's not so pretty. It's not so pretty to think that simply by believing in God that you can be a righteous person. But isn't that what it's all about? God don't ask us to do a lot of things. God don't want us to just always have to do this, to do that. What God wants us to do is to just, help our fellow man. Team Zulu said, should our fraternities and sororities ever come together, we will have our code. That's true, but again, that's an impossibility. But let's say if people who belong to these sororities, who belong to these fraternities, just a few members got together, think about what we could do. Think about, in a sense, how we could make our whole civilization better. But it doesn't take everyone. It takes groups of individuals coming together to affect change. You see? And that's the one thing that we got to get used to. It doesn't, the European, he's always wanted us to go chasing our tail. Like you might see how a dog sometimes will be chasing their tail, go around in circles. And the way they want you to go around circles is always think that it's only through complete and total unity that Black people can have success. And that's wrong. You can have success as individuals. See, if you teach your child to love himself, and teach your child to love other Black people, that means that we got one more person on code, you see. And the more people that we can get on code, you see, the more people we can get on code, the more people, in a sense, that can be part of our future, you know. And this is very important to understand. How you doing, Mary Jo? Mary Jo said, Mary Jo said, yes, Dr. Winters. Oh, hey, was my high school teacher. He was awesome then, and he is awesome now. Oh, thank you, Mary Jo. Thank you very much. You know, when I was teaching at CCA back in the day, back in the 80s, 90s, 80s, 90s, whatever. You know, I was teaching at CCA, and I used to try to be the rapping teacher because I would try to rap my lessons. I couldn't do it every day, but I would try to do it sometimes. How you doing, Mary Jo? Hope you're well. It's good to hear from you too, Mary Jo. You know, when I started teaching upper grade. It was fun in a way, but it wasn't fun because see, when you teach high school, sometimes people come back and you see and you feel you've had a good effect. You've had a good effect on the kids because they let you know right away when they go to college if what you taught them was really interesting or not interesting. But when you're teaching upper grade, the kids, in a sense, they don't really want to talk to you so much, and they don't really want to really give a lot of understanding, you know. Darlene X says, we have to change how our children are educated. Only our best and brightest should be allowed to educate our children. True, but the thing is, this is that. But I'll tell you something, Darlene. You know, it's a lot of people that don't have a college education that could be super teachers. Yes, they can be super teachers, and the reason they can be super teachers is because they studied this stuff. You know, we have a lot of people like autodidactic people. Like look at George. George Jackson, John George Jackson. Look at all the research he did. Look at Drusilla Dungy. Look at all the research he did on the Sumerians and the Kushites. You know, and they didn't have a college degree, but they were the brightest. And so we can't allow ourselves to think that just because somebody attended college, that person may have the credentials that can make them a good teacher. They just attended college. We have to look for those people who really are concerned, who really love our people and understand our children. See, our children cannot be taught like you teach white people. Our children like to be touched. Our children, in a sense, like to be shown love. Our children like to be given encouragement. But a lot of times, a lot of us, we just feel we go out there, we give the lesson, and that's it. No, you got to, in a sense, give a little bit more. You got to let our children know that they are recognized and that they're not alone, you know. And see, that's the thing that we fail to understand is that our children are human beings too, and they need that love, they need that support. You see, and yet, even up to this day, I heard teachers. I retired from teaching in Chicago public schools in 2016, and I was still hearing these teachers say, "I got mine, you get yours." That's bullshit. You shouldn't say that. You're there to teach people children. You're there to give children, in a sense, make their dreams and make their hopes seem realizable, you see? But if you're telling people, I got mine, you get yours, and all that type of bullshit, then you're not really helping our people. You're not really helping our children. You have to love our children. When I taught, I thought of I got 5 sons and 1 daughter. I saw my students as my kids. And if I wanted my kids to learn, I wanted these students to learn. And that is very important, very important. And, this is so true. You know, Joan says that I met too many dumb PhDs. And I'm going to tell you something, it's not their fault. I'm an educational psychologist. And when you really look at education, the more education you get, sometimes the dumber you become. The reason you become dumb is because of the fact, in a sense, is because of the fact that you become dumb because you begin to believe everything that you read instead of using your common sense. And so sometimes, in a sense, the more education a person gets, the more dumb they become, because instead of, in a sense, understanding that anybody can teach us something, that anybody can learn something new, you begin, in a sense, feel that all you need to know is you got that piece of paper, and that piece of paper gives you, in a sense, gives you some type of superiority over someone else. And it's a lot of moms. Do you know it's a lot of moms that haven't went to college, but they're homeschooling their kids, and their kids are going to go to college and they're going to finish their degrees and they're going to be successful. See, we have to, in a sense, stop always trying to think that the only hope is to go through those people, you're right, default. Systematic is black and actual. That's right. Like Giaz, Tacuna. Let me see. Giaz, Aramaic. All these different languages. Mostly all of them Akkadian. They all go back to Africa. You see, they all go back to Africa. But they want to make it look as though that they're Asians or they're whites, because the fact is that the people who speak them today say they're white. So that's why they want to say they're white. Okay, it's okay. Kudu said, I am rereading Gerald Massey's Book of the Beginning, Volume 1, examining the connection between Egyptian and English. There is much correspondence. Egyptian is foundational as a language. That's right. And not only that, but see, like I had said in a lecture a little while ago, is that English is an African language. And the reason it's an African language is that the people who invented English, the Picts, you see, the Phoenicians, the Scottish, you see, Queen Scotta. These people, in a sense, they were already speaking it, because, see, when you really look at English, when you really look at the English language, you find that a lot of the words, a lot of the base words in English are of Egyptian or Semitic origin. Dave Jar said, do you think there is a correlation between Hunab Kunte and Hunab Ku? It kind of sounds like the same. I don't know who Hunab Ku is. But I it could be a relationship. But sometimes you want to see to prove a relationship, you not only find one or two languages, you not only find one or two words in a language that compare or that show correspondence. You also want to see, are there other features? Are there grammatical features that are the same? Are some of the key terms, like the terms for mother, father, colors, family members? Are they of a different origin, or do they show a relationship? When you look at it like that, is that comparative linguistics is a very good tool to find relationships and be able to interpret history. But again, like I said, that's why you guys should get my book on African historical linguistics, and I talk about Diop, how Diop used it, and how you can use it too. And it's just all it's all aligned. This is the whole point, is that Darlene said, not Arab. Yeah, we're not Arab. The Semitic languages aren't Arab. But the thing is this, because of the fact that we find these light-skinned white people there today, you see, then we say, oh, they always was like that. No, they weren't always like that. See, the main problem with those people today, the reason that they're so light-skinned is that they wanted to get exotic women. They were black. The Arabs were black. The Moors were black. But they wanted to get those white women, get between those white thighs. And because they're always looking for an exotic woman, that's why they lost out. That's why later, in a sense, they have no power. See, and the thing is this, is that, think about this. You had Moors, and they had maybe 100. They had maybe 100, in a sense, concubines. And they had 100 white concubines. So this man could make, let's say, 10. If you had 100 white concubines and they had 5 children, that's 500 children. 10,000. Do you see how it was black people who got rid of in a sense, turn these people into whites? Okay, D. Foster said, Where can I find your books? Go to Amazon.com. Just put in there Clyde winners, books of Clyde winners, Amazon.com, and they'll all come up. You can see. Okay, Darlene says common sense tells you that they are not the real Egyptians. You might think that, but it's still some black people who look at this stuff, and then they'll say, they'll say, hey, they are white because the white man said they were white. So it's not always common sense. Some people don't have common sense. Okay, Ethiopians speak Semitic language. Yeah, but it's about 6 or 7. It's about 6 or 7 languages spoken in Ethiopia. You have Giaz. You have I don't want to say Aramaic, but you have Giaz, Tigrena, and you have about 5 or 6 Semitic languages spoken in Ethiopia, not just one. See, were the Moors the Black British? The Moors, in a sense, they were some of the Black British. You got to understand, it was all different types of Black British. The Moors, they mainly came into Ireland. They were the Dublins, the Dubs. And that means the blacks. And so the Moors, they came in, but it's interesting. Me and Dr. Short, we were talking about this because it seems like that there were Moors who came in to Britain from Germany. They came in from Switzerland and places like that. But it don't seem as though these Moors, it don't seem as though they tried to introduce Islam. It seems as though they came into the country and they married the people, but it don't seem as though they were trying to proselytize. They wasn't trying to look like spread Islam, because I didn't see any Islam, any that they were represented as Muslims, because see, the so-called Vikings, when they showed these Vikings, these big hairy men and red-haired people carrying clubs, the Vikings were really, in a sense, Moors. And they were just going around in their boats, just taking over places, you see. So it's interesting. The history is interesting, How you doing, Evok Info? Evok Info says Oromo is not a Semitic language. Oromo is not a Semitic language. Do you know that Colonel Rawlinson, he used in a sense Oromo to decipher the Sumerian language? Yes, he was able to show, in a sense, that the Sumerians spoke a language similar to Oromo. But Oromo, that's not a Semitic language. It's a language spoken in Ethiopia, but it's not a Semitic language. The Vikings were more. Yeah, the Vikings were Moors. I'm going to do an updated thing right now. I've been a friend of mine, Brian. He's been sending me a lot of stuff, and also Dora L. They've been sending me a lot of stuff on the Moors and the pictures and all that type of stuff. Some of the paintings. So I might do a presentation on the Moors down the road, but I'm still trying to gather the information and then trying in a sense to get a coherent presentation for the family. Yvonne, yeah, thanks for the correction, sir. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's okay, but it's no big deal. But it's all type of Ethiopia got a lot of different tribes in there, and the Oromos right now, they've been fighting a revolution. We always want to fight a revolution. I don't know. It's just all messed up, But again, in a sense, everybody think they're just superior to somebody else. And that's why the European continues to rule us today. They continue to rule us today because the fact, in a sense, is that instead of us trying to stop trying to be against each other, we're always trying to be against each other. But anyway, it's been 2 hours. We'll call it a night. Thank you guys for showing up. Please, press a like to the video. Subscribe to the station. To this platform. Thank you for your support. See you next Thursday. If you got any ideas, send them to me. I'll try to do them. Join my Patreon. I love you, family, and thank you for your support. Take care. Bye-bye.